Good morning, traders. I'm Emily Advani, the CEO of the Investment Banking Institute and your host here at NewsWare's Trade Talk. Joining me is trading anchor Bill Olson, who brings more than 30 years of institutional trading experience to our program. At Trade Talk, we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Today is Wednesday, January 15th. Investors brace for more inflation data today as earnings season kicks off. Markets ended mixed yesterday after the latest PPI data came in softer than expected. The Dow inched out a win of 221 points, or more than 0.5%. The S&P 500 held onto green by 6 points, or 0.11%. The Nasdaq ended lower, off 43 points, or about 0.25%. Bill, let's get into Wednesday's action with what is happening in the markets this morning.
Yes, good morning, Emily. Watching the S&Ps, we're up 0.37%. We're showing some nice green on the screen today. Listen, bond yields are ticking a little lower. That's a positive, how do I want to say this? It's the governmental fiscal policies that are going to be enacted or that are being discussed about that are really very market moving, typically. But right now we're dealing with earnings because we got a lot of good earnings reports that came out today. We got we got the Bank of New York, we got Wells Fargo, we got J.P. Morgan, we got Citi, we got Goldman. They're all trading higher after releasing their fourth quarter earnings earlier this morning. So that's a real shot in the arm for the markets today. Also, before the opening bell today, we get the CPI report coming in. That, we're going to have to see. That could be a real difference maker for the markets. Markets are also going to be paying a lot of attention today to the Fed speak because we got a lot of Fed officials scheduled to be speaking today. I noticed that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, he appears likely to be confirmed. But there are more confirmation hearings today, so we're not out of the woods with those confirmation hearings. There are going to be a lot of political noise is going to be come out of those. But let's take a look at overseas. Let's take a look at the overseas action. Let's look at the DAX. The DAX is up 173 points, or 0.85%. I mean, we're seeing that positive action that we're seeing in the financial stocks is really causing the Europe to help move higher as well. Let's not discount the positive inflation data that came out of Europe. You're looking at the FTSE. The FTSE's up 56 points, or 0.69%. And in London, they had lower than expected inflation, which is boosting the market sentiment. The UK annual inflation dropped to 2.5%, which was down from 2.6% in November, and that was below the anticipated number of 2.6. So yeah, they're off and running. You look at the CAC. The CAC in Paris is up 41 points, or 0.56%. Again, they're benefiting from the positive bank earnings here in the U.S., but they also had their inflation data, which came in essentially flat. So that's not negative. I mean, they can react to the other things, and that's really what's going on in France this morning. Then we'll take a look at last night in Asia. And Asia was a mix. I mean, the Nikkei fell 29 points, or 0.08%. I mean, markets are typically doing a little bit of a turn in Japan because next week they got a BOJ meeting, a Bank of Japan meeting. And, you heard from a couple of BOJ officials, and they really are trying to lay the groundwork to prepare the markets for a rate hike. And so that's got the Nikkei being a little bit cautious. Then you get the Hang Seng in Hong Kong, which jumped 66 points, or 0.34%. Saw some positive action in tech stocks, which is good. The Shanghai in China, it dropped 13 points, 13.82, which is 0.43%. Yesterday it was up over 2.5%. I mean, the Shanghai Composite was up big yesterday. And tomorrow we got a bunch of key economic data coming out of China. You got the GDP, you got the industrial production, you got the retail sales. They're all coming out tomorrow. So, a slight drop after a big gain, I mean, it's okay. I mean, I'm still kind of, I wouldn't be getting nervous just yet. There could be some positive action. It's really about these economic reports that are due out tomorrow. But then we got to just take a quick look at oil, because oil is a major factor, and oil is ticking higher this morning. We got WTI at $77.91 a barrel. We got Brent at $80.24 a barrel. They're both up by about 0.4%. You had the stockpile data that came out last night. The API estimates fell by 2.6 million barrels. But the estimates was for a drop of 3.5 million. And, later today we get the EIA data coming out, so that could be a key thing. I didn't see the OPEC report yet. I do believe that there's an OPEC report coming out today. Oh, yep. The OPEC report came out earlier. Let's see if there's anything here. OPEC lowers 2025 Eurozone economic growth forecast to 1% from 1.2%. That's a big drop. Libya's crude output rose by 53,000 barrels per day. Nigeria's output rose by 30,000 barrels per day. Saudi Arabia's crude oil output fell by 23,000. Iran fell by 12,000. OPEC notes 2024 global demand climbed by 1.5 a million barrels. All right, but that's what I have for you for morning market report, Emily.
Bill, take a quick pause here to, point out that using your newsware, you gather that information right here as we were on air. You're able to keep track of all of this because you have your newsware. We're going to show off some more ways to use it throughout the show here, including earnings action of the things you mentioned there in your opening, Bill. Economic events certainly at top of mind as more inflation data is coming out. But before we get to all those economic events, along with that Fed speak, we will get into earnings action because it is certainly picking up. A number of big banks have released a bunch to look ahead to. So, Bill, give us a full rundown of what we should be watching when it comes to earnings action.
Sure, we'll do. I mean, listen, JP Morgan, ticker JPM, John Paul Mary, these guys beat by 77 cents on higher revenue. You look at the stock this morning, JP Morgan, it's trading higher by about 0.3%. It's flat to higher. I always tell you, I don't like trading JP Morgan in front of earnings. They come in with good beats, but they don't really seem to be able to, hold the gains. I mean, you look at JP Morgan, I mean, it traded as high as 256 after that report came in, and now it's trading back down to 248.21. I mean, okay. Wells Fargo on there, then they beat by 8 cents, and that was done on lower revenue. Stock's up though, 3.67%. You got Bank of New York, they beat by 15 cents on higher revenue. Ticker BK, Boy Kilo, that stock's up 2.84%. You got Goldman Sachs, which delivered a beat of $3.60. I mean, that stock's up 1.89%. So that was positive. I also see Citibank came out with positive earnings. That stock's up 3.85%. So yeah, we had a lot of good earnings that came out, but we got more tomorrow. Morgan Stanley, ticker MS, Michael Sam, they're coming out tomorrow morning. Their EPS is $1.60. Expected move is 4.64%. United Healthcare, ticker UNH, their EPS is $6.73. Expected move is 4.81%. Bank of America, ticker BAC, Boy Apple Charlie, their EPS is 78 cents. Expected move is 4.24%. So yeah, a lot of good earnings coming out, Emily.
And again, Bill, you're using your newsware to keep track of all of that information, heavy on the earnings front. So you're able to sift through that quickly as it comes out. The other thing you're able to sift through and really gather as it hits the tape are pieces of economic data. We have that CPI today, but we also have a bunch of Fed speak. And as we're looking ahead, not just to today, but this week, this month, really this year, we're trying to gauge what the Fed may do next because that sentiment will certainly move markets. So, Bill, what is going on in terms of economic events?
8:30 a.m. we get the Consumer Price Index, the CPI. 8:30 a.m. we get the Empire State Manufacturing Index. 10:30 we get the EIA oil stockpiles report. Then at 2 p.m. Eastern Time we get the Fed's page book. In terms of Fed speak, 8 a.m. Richmond Fed Bank President Thomas Barkin. 10 a.m. Minneapolis Fed Bank President Neil Kashkari. 11 a.m. we're going to hear from the New York Fed Bank President John Williams, as well as Chicago Fed Bank President Austin Gould. Now I want to circle back. I want to step back to the Consumer Price Index. The core CPI is expected to turn in an annualized growth of 2.9%, which would be a little positive for the markets, I would think. Yesterday we had the PPI data came out. Now, typically the PPI data comes out after the CPI, but this week, now currently today we had the CPI coming in after the PPI. Now, how do I want to say this? Typically, the PPI report comes out after the CPI, but when you look at the data, when you have a weakening PPI number, which is what we had yesterday, the CPI number rarely runs hot. So I'm expecting a softer CPI number when that data comes out at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time this morning, Emily.
And as that hits the tape, as I mentioned, you will be seeing that right away. And then you'll be able to trail ahead of the markets instead of track behind them, and the other areas of information you look for that you can stay on top of using your newsware. Each morning you look at things like merger news, guidance news, shareholders meetings. You also look at your stocks grouped together like your FANG stocks and your Dow 30 stocks. So Bill, what else do you see is possibly moving the markets today?
What do I see? I'm doing a quick data check. I'm looking at my Dow stocks. I got 27 higher. I got 3 lower. Um, leading the gains is Sherwin-Williams, which is up by, 1.23%. Also Goldman Sachs is trading higher by 1.74%. These are the two stocks causing the big gains in the market this morning. You're looking at your FANG stocks, everything's trading higher. Everything's, ticking higher by at least 0.5%, it looks like. In terms of some of the news behind the tape, like Apple is now verifying TSMC's chips that they make to make sure that they're actually made in the U.S. Um, you know, Apple, Google, Meta, Brussels is reassessing their investigations of the tech groups. I will see if anything comes out of that. Meta, ticker META, this came out this morning. Meta's warning India's antitrust ruling could force a rollback of features and hurt its business. So, I don't think that's going to push the stock price down, but they're throwing a gauntlet down to these antitrust regulators. Tesla, ticker TSLA. The SEC, they're suing Elon Musk, saying that he did not comply with the requirement to notify the agency about his increasing Twitter stake. I don't think it's going to affect the stock price. I mean, this is Musk has been getting away with stuff from the SEC for years, and this will just be another one. In terms of Dow Jones 30 stocks, Boeing, this is interesting to me. The Trump transportation nominee, Sean Duffy, there's prepared remarks that he's going to be giving, when he does his Senate confirmation hearings. And one of the things he's supposed to be saying is that he wants to work to restore global confidence in Boeing. Interesting. Now, listen, Boeing came out with their numbers yesterday for the number of planes that they produced in last quarter. And the number, I think, was 57, which is pitiful. But they had the strike, then they had to get everything back up and running. I mean, they 57 was was a decent number, all things considered. But they could be doing that monthly. In fact, they could be doing up to 75 months. You get through this period of Boeing, which is the earnings period, which is not going to be a pretty sight for Boeing. I got to tell you, I start to see them building more and more planes. I think the January, February, March, April plane production is going to steadily increase month after month. So I'm positive on Boeing after this earnings period. Travelers Group, ticker TRV, Tom Richard Victor. Listen, stock is trading higher. It's flat to higher this morning. But the National Weather Service issued a red flag warning last night due to Santa Ana winds, which could be spreading that wildfire in California, which is really holding that stock back. So TRV, I'm still a little concerned there. Tom Richard Victor, I don't, when you get those red flag warnings, that could be an issue. Let's talk guidance data out there. APD, Apple Paul David. This is Air Products, ACQ, what adjusted EPS coming in $2.86. Street estimates $2.87. Yeah, okay. I'm not going to go crazy on that. In terms of shareholders meetings, Aviva, they're going to be doing a fireside chat at that JP Morgan conference today. That's scheduled for 11:15. And Interactive Surgical, that's ticker ISRG, India Sam, Richard Grace. They'll be making a presentation at that JP Morgan conference today at noon. So that's another one to keep an eye on. And that's what I have for you in terms of news hitting the tape this morning, Emily.
This is the type of data that NewsWare delivers daily. It's factual, it's market moving, and our alerting functions bring it to your attention as it happens. Go to www.newsware.com now and sign up for the trial and see for yourself the benefits that professional Newswire delivers. It is now that time of the show for the Trade Talk pick of the day. Bill, you have a lot of factors to be weighing this morning. We're ahead of that CPI report in the thick of earnings releases. What is your pick of the day today?
I'm going to go with Salesforce.com, ticker CRM, Charlie Richard Mary. I mean, with strong bank earnings are positive, and I expect the inflation the CPI data to come in less than hot. So that those two factors and the less hot inflation data would be positive for tech stocks. So I do kind of think that CRM could deliver some good gains. It sold off yesterday. CRM sold off yesterday, and I think, which I kind of think that this is an opportunity. I'm looking at yesterday's call volume. We had 23,260 calls traded at 15,122 puts. That's positive. I mean, the open interest is relatively flat, 246,000 versus 234,000. It's positive but flat. Major brokers they keep putting buy recommendations. They really do like the stock. Now, I had when I'm looking at it, I'm saying 225.60 as an entry price. It's just that um, that's a little high right now. I mean, because I think you can get in a little cheaper. I mean, the bid is 224.11, so if you can get in under 225, that'd be a steal. And yeah, I do like Salesforce.com, ticker CRM, Charlie Richard Mary, and that's my pick of the day, Emily.
Salesforce.com. It is today, and we will follow that along with you. We will also check in with you in just a moment about yesterday's pick of the day. But before we get there, let's take a look at the current breaking headlines that have hit the tape in our hot off the press segment. Bill, take it away.
Okay, let me see what we got here. Microsoft says at advent of the reliable quantum. Microsoft said advent of the reliable quantum computing era. We find ourselves in an exciting, pivotal time where we are at the advent of a reliable quantum computing era, and we might be right on the cusp of seeing quantum computers solve meaningful problems and capture new business value. Got to watch these quantum stocks today. I bet they're trading higher. Let's take a quick peek. RGTI up 9%. ARQQ up 13%. QUBT up 17%. Yeah, see, this is positive. It's positive for that sector. Let's see what else we got here. Trade Desk to acquire Syncera, terms undisclosed. EPAM, Elvis Paul, Apple Mary, EPAM expands collaboration with Google Cloud. Palo Alto Networks and IBM work on solutions for UK emergency services. KROS, Kilo Richard Oscar Sam. I saw this early this morning. They halted their all dosing on their phase 2 Tropos trial. That's not good. Stock was down hard on that. MasterCard ticker MA agrees to sell a $26 million, agrees to pay $26 million to settle a bias lawsuit. Ooh, BlackRock assets hit 11.6 trillion in the fourth quarter of 2024. I noticed Pfizer did a big sale of stock yesterday. They sold about 700 million shares, which is worth about which is worth over $3 billion in that London-based Helion firm they had a position in. CVS, CI, UNH. There's an FTC report that came out that indicated the pharmacy benefit manufacturers increased their drug pricing from 2017 to 2022. I guess that means they increased their pricing during the Trump administration. I don't care about the pricing from 2022. That was, 3 years ago. Okay, that's all I'm seeing this morning.
Okay, Bill, before we get to trading on this Wednesday, let's do that check-in on yesterday's pick of the day, which was Amazon. There's always sort of headlines floating around about Amazon out in the news. Just a few things that I saw hit the tape this morning. The world's 3 richest people are set to attend President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration next week. That was reported by NBC News, and that includes Bezos from Amazon, Musk, and Zuckerberg. I also saw a headline that OpenAI is rolling out a virtual assistant that features its ChatGPT AI model, and this is kind of taking on Amazon's Alexa. So just things floating around out there. Bill, yesterday you were looking at the stock pre-market, hoping for a certain entry price to get a gain there. How did your call work out?
I mean, listen, I made money on the trade yesterday. I mean, the stock opened up at 220.44 and it hit a high of 221.82. Now, listen, when I made the pick, it was bid 219. And I got to tell you, after the podcast, I did buy something. And, it ran all the way up to 221.82. So, yeah, there was your 1%. But you look at the stock this morning, Amazon, ticker AMZN, it was trading 221 just a minute ago. So, I made my 1%. It was still positive anyway you look at it, but it wasn't as great if you waited till the opening to get it, because there was a slight chance of a gain, but the real gain, if you were able to get into pre-market, you could have made the 1%. And I was able to do that yesterday, Emily.
We will call that one a win, and we will check in with you tomorrow about today's Salesforce pick of the day. Bill, thank you as always for your expert insight. Join us back here tomorrow and each weekday morning at NewsWare's Trade Talk when we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Again, I'm your host, Emily Advani, here with trading anchor Bill Olson. Traders, you know what to do. Let's go out there and make some green.